Good afternoon. Happy Friday, everyone. Yes, I'm back. Didn't put out a video this week yet, but I thought I would wait till Friday afternoon and give people a chance to, if they can't see it tonight, they can see it on Saturday, Sunday, got the weekend to mull over the information. Because my objective here is to clarify a few things. Hi, got one person in, that's great. So it has begun, fantastic. It seems to help if I don't say what I'm going to talk about to start getting people in. Mostly because they like to shadow ban me. In any case, today I'm going to jump right into it because I put the rewind feature on. So what you can do is if you get in here a little late, you can just rewind and start from the beginning if you wish. I also put these videos up on YouTube as well. So you can go back and you can take a look. I should have that up tonight or tomorrow morning. So there you go. In any case, I've got a bit of a lineup today. And the first thing I wanted to talk about was, basically today I want to clarify some stuff because there seems to be some disconnect in understanding about, for example, Trump and the United States leaving the World Health Organization, right? And I've done several posts saying that there is a year wait. So basically that departure would not happen for 1 year. Now, that was the case when Trump left in 2020. The media didn't cover that. Nobody covered it. I did. But I had mistaken that it was in the WHO Constitution, but it's not. That provision, and I'm going to pull it up right now, is, here we go. Sorry. Wrong one. It was a joint resolution at the 80th Congress, second session, CH 469, June 14th, 1948. Yes. And that resolution, the part that would concern you, and what I'll do later, I've got the attachments here. I will put them in the comments. Sometimes that's difficult to grab, so I will actually put it, I'll do another post. There you go. And I'll put them there. In any case, here we go. Here is the clause. Okay. Such other expenses as the Secretary of State deems necessary to participate by the United States in the activities of the organization, meaning the World Health Organization, provided the provisions of Section 6 of the Act of July 30th, 1946, Public Law 565, 79th Congress, and regulations thereunder applicable to the expenses incurred pursuant to the Act shall be applicable to any expenses incurred pursuant to this paragraph. Section 4. In adopting this joint resolution, the Congress does so with the understanding that in the absence of any provision in the World Health Organization Constitution for withdrawal from the organization, the United States reserves its right to withdraw from the organization on a 1-year notice, provided, however, that the financial obligations of the United States to the organization shall be met in full for the organization's current fiscal year. Section 5. In adopting this joint resolution, the Congress does so with the understanding that nothing in the Constitution of the World Health Organization in any manner commits the United States to enact a specific legislative program regarding any matters referred to it in said Constitution. Approved June 14th, 1948. So there you go. That's where the year provision is. Now, one of my subscribers on my Telegram channel, he actually pushed me because I had read secondhand that it was found in the WHO Constitution. And in fact, in the WHO Constitution, they say it's a 6-month withdrawal period. So clearly, in order for the United States to participate in the World Health Organization at its inception, they made this resolution, okay? And so they gave themselves actually longer than the WHO Constitution provides for, which is 6 months. So a departure from the World Health Organization by the United States does not happen until January 2026. They must keep up their entire membership. Hi, everybody. Nice to see you all joining in. As I said, you can rewind if you want to go to the beginning. But this is important stuff because I'm doing posts and I'm getting called a liar and it's like, no, I know that there's a year. And some media did say there is a year, but knowing where it came from, that's kind of important. So, yeah. Getting on to, and again, just let's reiterate here. It was the world, 2020, Donald Trump did that too. He withdrew, and the first thing Biden did was he resumed that. And I've done a couple of videos talking about why I might think that. I'm not going to get into that here today. But I am going to make some clarifications about Agenda 2030 and Trump's withdrawal from the Paris Agreement. Now, here's the thing about that. The Paris Agreement doesn't lock in Agenda 2030. In fact, they are two very separate deals. The Paris Agreement, in fact, 3 nations never signed it, and that was Libya, Iran, and, hold on, Yemen. Originally, they never signed it. So, but they still have Agenda 2030. Yes, they do. And the disconnect between Agenda 2030, when he said, he's departing, Trump said he's departing the green scam, okay, and the Paris Agreement, again, that's a 1-year provision as well. That will not happen until January of 2026. Now, I have to find exactly where that legislation is, and I'm wondering if it is built in, like they did with the WHO back in 1948. I'm not sure. So, but anyway, it is 1 year, and that was built into the agreement as far as I understand. So, yes. Now, I had read before that you only get one opportunity to depart the Paris Agreement, and well, Trump already did that once, but now I'm not finding that. So that's interesting because as we know, the internet is being massaged and a lot of information is disappearing, right? So that's important stuff. But the big thing is Agenda 2030, because people are perceiving that Agenda 2030 is the green scam. Well, no, it's not being fissured at all. Not at all right now. It's still on. And I'm going to read where it all started. It started at the Rio Declaration, Rio de Janeiro, 1992. Okay? And I'm going to read this word for word so everybody understands. The Rio Declaration on the Environment and Development, also known as Agenda 21, is a plan of action to improve the environment and human lives. It was adopted in 1992 at the United Nations Conference on the Environment and Development in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. The goals of Agenda 21 address the problems of today to prepare for the future. Eradicate poverty by giving the poor resources to raise their living standards. Improve human lives and protect the environment. The key elements of Agenda 21: work plans with goals, responsibilities, and cost estimates. Cross-cutting activities such as education, capacity building, and civil participation. Sections on pollution that consider sources, environments, and impacts. Places climate change responses in the framework of a sustainable development action plan. Okay? So, that all began in 1992. Agenda 2030 is an extension of the Rio Declaration and Agenda 21, okay? So I'm going to, I did a little search here. How did Agenda 2030 emerge out of Agenda 21? Agenda 2030, also known as the Sustainable Development Goals, emerged from Agenda 21 by essentially building on its principles and goals, taking them further by creating a more detailed, specific set of 17 goals aimed at achieving sustainable development across various aspects of society, the environment, the economy, with a clear deadline of 2030. Essentially acting as an updated and expanded version of Agenda 21's vision for a sustainable future. So that's what's... Trump hasn't departed from the green scam, as he calls it, right? No. He may be departing from the Paris Agreement. And I kind of think that the Paris Agreement is going to get broken in several ways. I see the table getting set. Alberta Premier Danielle Smith wants to drill, baby, drill too, right? And so does Trump, okay? But it doesn't eliminate what's happened here. It doesn't eliminate Agenda 2030, because originally Agenda 21, let's go back, it was being implemented originally on local levels, city levels, right? So this already began years and years ago, and Agenda 2030 sort of followed the same trend. So you will see in most cities around Canada, the United States, it doesn't matter where, they have a sustainable development plan and a smart city plan now too, right? It's important to get this, or, you know, for people to understand these agreements and how they fit in together. But the Paris Agreement isn't attached to Agenda 2030 at all, no. And in fact, this week I covered how DOGE, for example, is satisfying sustainable development goals, right? How Make America Healthy Again is working hand in hand with the sustainable development goals. It's important, guys, because, you know, if we don't understand where they all come from, we can believe these guys when they tell us what we want to hear, right? And a lot of people, I've been kind of surprised, have been under the false impression that this is over in the United States. And no, it's not. It's not over anywhere. These are national commitments. And in fact, Iran and Yemen and, Libya, the ones that didn't sign the Paris Accord, of course, or the Paris Agreement, are in on Agenda 2030. They're not so pleased with, you know, a few of the things like equality, women's equality, but they have signed on, so important. Hi, Don, how are you? Ron, nice to see you. It's been quite a while. Angela, nice to see you. Lori, right on. Kristen, Sylvia, yes. Jason, Alan, fantastic. Nice to have you here. So, hi, Peter. We have a lot of disconnects, I find. And again, when we keep getting thrown at us what we want to hear, everything seems to go out the window. We forget what we've learned before. And I'm kind of shocked. I shouldn't be shocked that so many people that are on my feed that were, you know, seemingly against some of the things like the heavy biotechnology basis of MAHA and, of course, DOGE in AI governance are seemingly all for Trump. They're not even reading anything because he's telling them exactly what they want to hear. And in Canada, we're going down the same path, right? We are, because, you know, there are people already, oh, we need our own version of DOGE. Well, yeah, that's the plan and that's the program, because that's how they're going to create inclusiveness with all of us, in the belief that, you know, that we have a say. But if we thought we were a number before in the system, the democratic system that we have, we're going to be a speck of dust when it comes to AI governance. This is what we need to understand. It's crazy. You know, totalitarianism, it works, right? That's why all these world leaders, they're striving for, this is why Agenda 2030, this is why Agenda 21. They know that sustainable government and efficient government can be done, can be executed much better under totalitarian rule. So right now what they're doing is currently rebranding democracy, adding aspects from here and there, throwing it in the pot of totalitarianism. It's scary how brainwashed the people are. Again, you tell them what they want to hear and everything flies. Everything they know to be true, it's gone. And people want hope. They want hope. And I'm not saying, okay, like what Trump is doing, I'm sure is going to be quite successful. It is. If journalists can't question him, if he won't give them a press pass, like that would make the independent journalist controlled opposition, right? Because if you can only ask certain questions, and therefore, and you won't be included if you don't play ball, well, you're allowing yourself to be controlled, right? There's no doubt that Trump, with all the rule changes, what was it last week? It was that he did an executive order saying that he was the only one who could comment on the law. Covered that on my Telegram channel, that no one else could. When you remove, that's the removal of oversight, when Trump's platform is supposed to be all about oversight, but he's systematically removing any opposition. And again, I do believe that it will make the U.S., it'll fix a lot of problems. It will. But at what cost, right? In the old days, I had a hemp food company, and I was one of those early adopters, as I was in the green movement, right? I've come a long way, guys. I've learned a lot through these experiences. And that corporate experience, I think minimum wage was $8 an hour. And I paid my people $12 to do packaging for my brand of hemp foods. I just didn't feel $8 was adequate, right? Anyway, I got criticized by industry for that. But I was like, no. And I wanted more of an inclusive staff. Well, what I found was that it slowed down the development of my company. It became a right pain in the ass. And I swore after that, well, if I ever ran a company again, a totalitarian rule would be the only way. You can't. And this is what's happened with all these corporations, right? They let it get out of hand. And now they are doing what it takes to become efficient and sustainable. And that is the attraction. Right now in El Salvador, it had a lot of problems, huge problems, gangs. And I was there in 2017 for 2 months. And I walked one day to go to the gym across the river. And where I was staying was a surf village, so it was protected within the boundaries. But I went across the river to this, there was a little hut with a few machines. So I go over there and I get asked for a toll. And the guy says, $1. And I'm like, hey, what? I didn't get it. And then as I left, he laughed when, I didn't know what he was talking about, and I pretended I didn't speak very much Spanish, and I walked away and I went, hey, oh my God, that was the gang. Yeah. Well, anyway, Nayib Bukele was elected, when was that? 2019, I believe. In any case, when he got into his second term, well, first he changed the Constitution so that he could have a second term. And then he started mass arrests. And like 80, 90,000 people, that was a lot. And he built these prisons And for the worst offenders, I mean, even having a tattoo would land you in. There was no trial, no due process, none of it. But in fact, what has happened is he has effectively cleaned up that country. He has. In a very short period of time. And now we've got the United States investing in green energy in a nuclear power plant. They've already signed a memorandum of understanding. Trump did that on February 3rd with the country of El Salvador. So it's pretty clear that Bukele was courted long ago. And if you clean this up, we're going to invest in you. Who else is there? Is Saudi Arabia. Yeah. They're doing, they're building another green project. I've detailed it on my Telegram channel, but it evades me right now. But biogas. Yes, that's what they're going to do. So this is happening. And the sustainability in which they speak is, well, it's rather authoritarian, right? It is. And this is what we know to be true, okay? But when we see sustainable development goals, we think environment, Paris Agreement. No, 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 no. Sustainability, it's about governmental sustainability. And backed by biotechnology, which is a huge part. Like, they're not into the true meaning of sustainability, which I was involved with for many years, the organic sector, agriculture, hemp. This is about ensuring sustainability for the government, its systems, slicing and dicing departments that they do not feel are needed. In Argentina, Milei, he sliced immediately the women's rights department, all of these departments. I'm a believer that we are equal. So I don't know why we need a special government department, but that's where he's going with that. Okay? There's no special treatment for anyone, and he dismantled government. In fact, Milei did it first before Trump. They just didn't call it Doge. But he did exactly what Donald Trump is doing right now, because that's the model. That's the model. Same with Bukele in El Salvador. The problem is that we keep looking, in the West, I've said this before many times, we are socialized to believe in our own superiority. And the global South is where all the action is right now. That's where it is. The Middle East is on fire. And of course, they are the leaders in AI governance. They will have the first fully installed AI government in Abu Dhabi by 2027. So they're the model builders, okay? Because all these systems are going to be similar. They are. They're rebranding democracy. They're rebranding free speech. They're changing the very definitions that we grew up with. And this is what we need to understand. You know, I keep getting back to the whole partisan politics stuff. It's a show. It's a show. They know where this is going. They needed the liberals and the Democrats in the States, liberals in Canada, to push common sense to the wall, to push us to being absolutely, what the hell? That's what that was all about. In order to open the gate for the conservative frontier to come in. And that's going to happen in Canada. It is. Just like it did in the United States. Because that's the program. It is. It's sad because on Telegram last night, I cover a lot about Saudi Arabia. I do, because they're the leaders. They are. I don't care what anyone says. No, it's not the Jews. It's Islam. And, for example, Giorgia Meloni in Italy, her platform to become the Prime Minister of Italy was largely built on the fact that she was She said publicly many, many times that Islam is not compatible with Italy or Italian culture. Well, I showed video the other day on my private Telegram channel that has her and MBS, Mohammed bin Salman, the Crown Prince, hanging out because he just invested $10 billion into Italy. In fact, MBS in Saudi Arabia, he receives all the world leaders. He's not out courting them. He's receiving them all, including the United States. He is. He doesn't go to see anyone. They all come to him. And I've been demonstrating this for, getting on 3 years on that frontier. When I got over the fact that that original truth narrative that it is communism or communitarianism that is coming to our world via Agenda 2030. No, it's the ideology of Islam. It's embedded in the Sustainable Development Goals. It is. And the leader here is Saudi Arabia, who is going to give Trump $1 trillion. What do you think he's going to want for that, huh? Yeah. They are authoritarian monarchs, dictators. You don't go against the government for anything. In fact, they don't even allow a beggar in the street. They're quickly arrested. I just downloaded a film on that. This is where the mentality is. And what it is binding the belief, which in Agenda 2030's case is global sustainability, and binding it within a legal framework, which is the Sharia. I've often likened on Telegram how the carbon credit program, I call it the Sharia law in an app, right? Because what they're doing is transplanting. This is a rebranding. This is masterful. It truly is. I'm a marketer, so I love marketing brilliance, and but it's absolutely diabolical. It is. This is where we're going. Yeah. There will come a time where, again, there will be no pushback and no discussion of any of it. And that's coming sooner than later, I think. Where I really saw that Saudi Arabia was a leader in all of this was in 2020 when I was reviewing the COVID action platform put out by the World Economic Forum. That was a 400-layer. I'm talking the most extensive program. I call the World Economic Forum the business development or the business planners of the UN and Agenda 2030, okay? They're kind of like the wing. Well, this was very extensive, and what stood out to me immediately as I was going through it was the prominence of Saudi Arabia. In fact, the US was kind of over here, and it was Saudi Arabia, Saudi Arabia. And, of course, the World Government Summit was just held in Dubai. It's been there since 2013. It doesn't travel. They just rebranded, in fact, last year, calling it the World Governments Summit. But they talk about global governance a lot. And again, these AI systems are all being integrated because who was there talking? OpenAI, right? Oracle, Larry Ellison. All those guys from Silicon Valley, no, they're setting up shop there. They are. That's where the big money is. As I was saying on Telegram this morning, okay, like $1 trillion to the United States from Saudi Arabia, 10 billion to Italy. I have listed over the last couple of years an extensive list of memorandums of understanding and direct development fund investment from Saudi Arabia and all over Africa, in multiple nations, throughout the entire Caribbean. They covered the entire Caribbean, and I'm not kidding there. Including Cuba, okay? United States, the $1 trillion, that's going to be based on sustainable development. Yes, it will be. Of course, the United States has an agreement already with the UAE. It's called PACE. And that is the development of green energy. It's a joint venture. It doesn't have to take place in the United States. It can be anywhere. They can choose. I'm wondering if, and I said this before, maybe in the El Salvador deal, the nuclear power plant, that might be one of their joint agreements. I'm not sure yet. So in any case, guys, this has got a life of its own. And I remember when COVID hit and I was talking about Agenda 2030, I said it's a freight train. It's a steamroller. And it's proving itself to be, absolutely. But what they need, and especially in the United States, okay, is Trump has to pit himself against the New World Order. He has to. Because what he needs to do is create the nationalistic feeling to rebuild the United States. But also, he needs to avert civil war. Because that could actually happen there, right? It could. I mean, in Canada, we don't have the guns that they do. And in Canada, we don't have the population that the United States does. This is why these politicians don't talk about Agenda 2030. They don't talk about Agenda 21. They don't, because if people truly understood the nonpartisan nature of all of it, well, it would tell them, well, why am I voting? The jig would be up. I learned this in the Canadian 2020 election. That's when I really started to understand about the controlled opposition. Guys, this is all I do. More than full-time, learning and watching. But I'm taking a different worldview. I'm not just looking at the United States as the superpower. It's a former superpower now. A cog in the wheel. A big one and a very important one. Don't get me wrong here. The United States is integral in maneuvering the rest of the West and the Western democratic world into following in their footsteps. So they are absolutely needed right now by this new world order. They are. Too many people believe that they have a say by voting here in Canada. All politicians read the same script. The agenda keeps moving forward. You're absolutely correct. Yes, you are. What they do is, as supposed adversaries, they push the agenda along. And that's how it goes. It does. And again, we have very short memories. We do. Very short memories. For example, during COVID, the censorship was absolutely insane, right? Well, Trump got up there the other day, his press secretary, and said, well, if you are in this room, it's a privilege to ask a question. And if you're not on the right track, well, you're out of here. They're introducing independent journalists, but the first one they chose is a 23-year-old gal, and I'm sure she's pretty good at what she does, but she's an avid Trump supporter. She's a cheerleader. So how is that any balanced reporting? I posted that in a couple of places, and I was quite shocked as to how many people thought that was perfectly fine. And this is a crowd that belong to these groups, right, that are freedom. But it's interesting to see. Everything we know is going to change, and it's not going to take long, guys. And the people are cheering it on, just like in Canada, cheering on Doge. Well, what you're doing is you're cheering on AI governance. They don't understand that. Like, do you remember, getting on the phone with the voice talking to a machine? I still can't do it to this day. But that's going to be life, truly. It is. And I'm already watching the AI, the manipulation of it. The consistent ads, create your AI book. If I tried to create an AI book based on my content, well, I couldn't write it because it would write it completely incorrectly. There will be one narrative, and it will be the narrative of Agenda 2030. It is. Again, just like people talk about BlackRock all the time, right? BlackRock has the ESGs. They're exactly the same. It's the same idea as the SDGs. They just branded it something different to wrap into their investment packages. It's the same thing. It is. They're part of the Agenda 2030 cartel. Only supported businesses will rise. And that's just the way it is. Scary times. Yeah, again, since 1992, Madonna. 1992, this plan has been on. And I remember originally with Agenda 21, when I started my magazine in the, 2005, but around 2002, I was learning about Agenda 21. In my career, I was in the organic sector, and it didn't compute. It was like, how could they do this? Like, there were stories of, how they're going to gut certain areas and there will be no humans living there. And we're already seeing that happen with disaster after disaster after disaster. It's hard to keep up. But these areas are being reconfigured in their entirety. They are. Crazy times. Many people think it's the Chinese. Yes, they do. And funny enough, there is a show that is Northern Perspectives in Canada. And they just had a guy talking about foreign interference, China. Maybe part of it, but no. The Middle East, absolutely. Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, Alberta, Danielle Smith, the premier, as soon as she became premier, her first trip was off. Of course, she went to the COP meeting in the UAE and Saudi Arabia, UAE, and Qatar, where there is a University of Calgary campus in Doha. People don't understand how important these kings and sheiks from the Middle East are. Again, because we have very limited understanding of Islam. And when we think of the Middle East, everybody is Israel, the Jews, Zionists. No, that's the veil. That's the veil. Because right now in Saudi Arabia, they were hosting just the last few days the peace talks for Ukraine and Russia. Saudi Arabia is always in between. Right from the get-go with the Ukraine war, they were the ones that negotiated the prisoner swap right at the beginning. Now they are hosting the negotiations without Ukraine. The U.S. is there, and Israel is there. And Russia and their representatives. And Saudi Arabia is also in between all of the Palestinian negotiations. Palestine, Israel. They're the ones with the puppet strings. I don't care what anyone says. I presented tons of evidence on my Telegram channel. And I'd love to see you guys there. Mostly, it's a paid platform. It's $35 US. It's $50 Canadian. That's for a forever subscription because I have to support myself and the work. But it's unfortunate because I don't have that many people over there. But I'm going like hell with the information. I really felt the need to value add my content, mostly because of a 6-year commitment, gone through all my own money, had to move 11 times here in Mexico in a year and a half because I had several threats on my life. It was pretty brutal. So here I am, still doing it. But I need some support. It was always the same people donating to me. And they were always the people that didn't have the money. And it just wasn't fair. So this is why I started it. So I'd love to see you there. I'd love to be able to educate you even further. Because this is honestly the tip of the iceberg as to what I cover. I want to help you get over the controlled opposition version. And I spend a lot of time in the analysis area analyzing the media and what's behind and how they're finagling the information. Just as I did in my post yesterday, which was about the vaccines, right? And how the controlled opposition is trying to keep a focus on those ingredients rather than the technology. So again, I could definitely use your help over there. Yes, distractions. The distractions are rife. It is absolutely, I don't know how anyone that is off to work every day, kids, family, activities, how in the world you could ever keep up. Because even full-time, I can't. I can't cover it all. I can't. And I try not to get sucked into those distractions as to actually laying out a storyline every day. The distractions, again, we really, it's hard to clear away the fluff because, again, so much of it is designed to keep our eye off the ball, to confuse us, to rescinding our own power and going, oh, God, okay, just let them do what they do. And, well, we pretty much have no choice at this point, but I think it's really imperative that we understand where it's all going. It is. Because we're the storytellers, right? We know that the truth is going to be wiped away from the internet. It's not going to take long for that. It's going to be us telling those stories to our children. I don't have any, so that's why I'm telling the stories to you, right? But we're going to be the ones that have to keep this going so that people understand 20, 30, 40 years from now how this really went down. You got to know that in 50 years from now, that vaccine, that COVID vaccine, is going to have saved millions of lives. And every bit of PR, even in the United States, is saying exactly the same thing. Trump is still saying the same thing. So a lot of people are, where are we? Sorry, I keep losing it. This is why many of the younger people don't pay any attention to any of this. They are too busy with kids working. Yeah, exactly. And, you know, a lot of us deferred our, I know I did when I was young. I was like, hey, I'm busy. I have my career. I don't have time for this. And we didn't pay attention. But here we are now. And I think it's important that those of us that have acquired some wisdom in all of this, again, we have to tell those stories because the verbal is going to be the only conduit of that message, of the truth, because the internet will be scrubbed. People don't write anymore. I mean, my gosh, people can't even spell anymore. They can't write in cursive anymore. We've lost so many of our skills. And now they're telling us AI is going to be so much better. I can already tell it's not. It's not. People are losing their skills. In fact, I watch a few younger spiritualists. And I do because I want their perspective, right? The spiritual community is quite integral into the future here. In any case, it's funny because sometimes they'll channel a word and then they don't know what it means. Like their vocabulary is that big. Spelling, even in their titles, they misspell. Simple words. And I'm talking, there's one gal I watch and she's wonderful, but she's 30 years old. And she doesn't know words. And that's consistent across the board, 30 to 40. Their vocabularies have gone to nothing. And then you get to the 20-year-olds. All their communication is like this. You think they'd have a thesaurus, nearby, but again, what has happened is the English language has become it's simplifying. And interestingly enough, Islam in Arabic, they have limited characters. Less is more talk there, right? They don't like colorful talk, descriptive talk. That's not part of the language, and that's something that you can see with AI has already done in terms of how we communicate. remember when we got the phones to begin with, and all of a sudden a new language came out? I never used any of that. I wrote everything out long and still do. But a whole new language emerged, and what it did was actually bastardize our own language, right? Very interesting. You only got that. Well, at least you got a notification, Jumbo Jim. That's a good thing. It's odd. In any case, I wanted to leave that with you over the weekend, and again, scroll back if you're getting the whole spin the wheel deal on YouTube. I'll have this video up a little later, but I hope I bring some clarification to again the Paris Agreement, Agenda 2030. Yes, it's being implemented in the United States, and it's nonpartisan. This one's over Trump. That's why he never mentions it. And that's why they draw everything into the Paris Agreement, for the perception that none of this is going to happen, but it is. Of course we know it. Smart cities, the implementation of these goals. And next week I'm going to take on Project Stargate and show you how that project is all about meeting Sustainable Development Goals. Let's see if we got any more. Yes, I noticed my spelling can be bad at times. I put it down to menopause and too much information on the brain concentration problem solved. Absolutely. Those are factors. But when we allow our language, our language is shrinking. Even you try to make a comment on Facebook and it wants to write it for you. And it's always, for me, too short. I have to go back and it's like I struggle against it. Like, get out of my computer. What it has done for a lot of the youth is honestly, it's like the calculator. I was thinking about this the other night. All of us could add and subtract, divide, multiply. I mean, in a reasonable, not to a ... thing, but we could. Now, the kids can't, and I've seen this in Mexico. There's a lot of stores here where they just write down, okay? They don't even have a calculator. So there are people that write down and they can add, and the kids can add and subtract. And then there's kids that go for that calculator and they can't actually add or subtract. So, and I remember that happening in Canada and the US when the calculators came out. They wouldn't allow them in schools for quite some time, right? But when they did, well, those skills are gone. Because when you don't use it, you lose it. When you don't write it, you lose that skill. When you don't spell on the regular or are forced to, or you're forced to look it up in the dictionary like we used to, well, you don't learn it. We're letting these machines take over. And they're trying to tell us that we're going to be smarter. No, we're not. How do you figure that? We are losing our skills. In fact, what I see on TikTok and all the social media, I see, for example, the Washington, D.C. housing exodus, right? Well, now I've seen about 20 pieces. What you have is a bunch of copycats. Everybody copying the content of another. There's no creativity. They're all just trying to one-up each other. That's sad. I think it's sad. Yeah. Do you think people will eventually rise? No. I don't. I think that they've got our data managed to such a point. And I said this to somebody today. For example, when I share, I get a lot of shares on my pieces. I usually, what I do is I put together a big story and that I've been working on content on Telegram, and that goes on to Facebook. I get a ton of shares. But when I follow up those shares, it doesn't go anywhere. And in fact, a lot of times it's not even seen. So they're letting me, it look like I'm, woo, here we go, this could go viral. And then nothing. And that's not a function of who's shared it or their friends. They're just simply not seeing it. So they're harvesting our data. There'll be no opportunity for the people to rise. And we saw this in Canada, I'm sorry, with the Freedom Convoy. And I know I wasn't well liked for that, but everything is managed. I watched it with every protest across my country. I've heard it in other nations like Australia and New Zealand. We underestimate the power and investment into global governance. And they're not letting somebody come in and destroy that. If there was to be a civil war in the United States, I'm quite certain it would be managed. It would. And just as I believe in the Middle East, most of that is managed. It is. Because these opposing forces help to bring in the next step, right? Like the Freedom Convoy, what it helped bring in was FinTrack. So what the government got out of those donations that arrived anonymously, the government got to hack the bank accounts of hardworking Canadians who supported the Freedom Convoy. And that legislation still stands, right? When the Emergencies Act was called in Canada, well, number one, it's still going on, 3 years later, the trial? Nothing has happened since then. The people that are out there protesting have no direction. No one has come and said, look, we have to forge a path here. And none of those freedom people ever talked about Agenda 2030 because that's what enacted everything. The WHO is an agency of the United Nations. They were the ones giving the recommendations during COVID. They were the head honchos globally, everywhere. The public health people were taking orders from the WHO. That's how it went, because that was the agreement. They were granted global management January 30th of 2020. So all this rhetoric that freedom is winning, democracy is winning, no. It's just being refashioned. And I think what we have to do is, again, keep digging into the hero that is you. It's within you. We have to make the changes to adapt to what's going on. I'm not saying accept at all. I'm talking about being the fish on the fishbowl, swimming on the outside. I don't see myself integrating with AI. No, I don't. I find it absolutely frustrating. I do. I like my own creativity. I don't get creativity. I even go into designs like Canva. I used to use InDesign and Photoshop and all of that, but now it's all online stuff, and it wants to design everything for me. And it's like, no, get out of here. I have to fight against it to be able to use my own creativity, and that is what's happening now. In order to express yourself creatively, you have to fight against the machine that doesn't want you to do that. They want it within their framework. And you got to know that all of that work I do online like that is absolutely monitored. Like, I want an old computer with an old program. That's what I want. Because I feel like I'm getting interfered with a lot of times. Yeah. They say this AI is going to make us more creative, more productive. You know what? You can wing out stuff a lot faster, sure. Yeah, you can. Professionally, yes, you can. But creatively, stepping outside a box, no. Because they want us all in a box. They don't want anyone traveling outside. I wish I had better news. But you know what? I said that right at the beginning when COVID hit. I knew that was the trip switch to Agenda 2030. Again, I knew about Agenda 21, didn't quite understand how it all came together at that point because I just started on Agenda 2030 full time. All the world is a stage, Jumbo Jim. Yes, you are. You're absolutely correct. It is a stage. It is all orchestrated. All of it. All of it. We will be forced to use AI just like everything else, and basically to live we will have to accept it all. Well, again, you don't have to accept it. You're probably going to have to deal with it, though. Yeah. Intrusive software. Yeah, whoa. I just got a computer. One of my subscribers bought me a computer. Very sweet. But I've been fighting against it. Yeah. And I'm having, a hard time adapting because I yell at it a lot. I do. I'm yelling at it. It's not like using a computer before. It's not. It wants to take over, and it wants to direct me, and it wants to keep me in a box. And now, of course, the AI overview is coming up everywhere. And yes, the AI overview is not bad, but I can already see on different search engines how that is being directed. Like I have Brave, and on the Brave frontier, it has a better AI overview than anything. But Google, Bing, they're all the same across the board. Yeah. You have to be very specific about what you search now too. That's what I find. Before I could be quite broad, and I could get a whole bunch of different results. Now I have to be highly specific to be able to get the result I need. So I spend a lot of time figuring out those perfect words and the perfect combination in order to extract and use that AI to my advantage. But you got to know, all these people writing books with AI, like they're not even writing them. There's no heart, there's no soul, there's no passion in it. I'm sorry. It's dry. And that's what they want. They want a dry society. They do. They don't want our passion. They don't want soul. Brave is a pretty good browser. Yeah, it is. It is. The best one I've found for at least utilizing AI and getting the search results I used to, on the traditional ones, right? But very frustrating. Yeah, I'm fighting. I'm using Canva too to do a little bit of graphic design. And I could do so much better on using Photoshop and even InDesign by Adobe years ago. I'm fighting against it. It's taking me 3 times the time to do what I used to do. And that's because I won't use their templates. I don't want their templates. Bland is the new cool. Very good. Yes, Ron. That's it. Bland. It is. Like Islam, right? The ideology. Gotta see, they dress all the same. Bland. No standing out. That's not really permitted. On my channel, I do talk a lot about that, about how we are morphing into the ideology of Islam, and with example, and I dig up some scripture too, here and there. The browser is Brave. Yeah, I like it. That's the best one so far. Yeah. All cookie cutter. Yeah. In any case, guys, I hope I helped you out today, and I'll let you get on your way. And thanks for joining me. And thanks for the engagement. I like to do the comments. That's a great part of doing the lives. Have a great weekend. And next week, I'm taking on Project Stargate. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.